Are you thinking about a trip to Disney with your grandkids? Well, we just came back from Disneyland with ours, and we have 7 tips to help you not only survive, but enjoy a trip to Disney with your grandkids. So stay tuned. Let's get started.
Tip number 1, go in later and leave earlier.
You bet. Now, our daughter and son-in-law strategy was to get up super early and leave their hotel by around 7, be at the entrance by 7:30, and then that way they were ready for rope drop. Well, we did miss one thing by not going into rope drop as early as they did. And on the last day that they were there, they were chosen to do the countdown for the opening of Disneyland. So let's take a look at this video our daughter shot. You can see what I'm talking about.
Good morning, everyone! Morning! Welcome to Disneyland, the happiest place on earth! This morning we have the Murray family visiting from Utah. Let's give them a warm Disney welcome. They're going to join us in a countdown from 10 to 1. But first I have something very special to say to you. 1, 2, 3.
Let the magic begin!
Starting with
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We were a little sad that we missed them counting down that morning.
But our strategy that week was to sleep in a little later and arrive about 9 o'clock at Disneyland. And then we would use GPS and texting to find where they were and join them.
Right. And you don't have to stay to the very end.
We would usually stay until after dinner, and then we went back to the RV, spent the evening with Phoebe, and went to bed.
Because we were really tired.
Yeah, it was a lot of walking.
We had seen the Disney fireworks before, and we'd ridden all the rides that we wanted to ride. So we just hugged the grandkids, said goodnight, and went back to the motorhome.
Keep the hours that work for you and your health.
You bet. Tip number 2, ride the rides you want to ride. Don't feel obligated to ride something if it isn't your thing. Now, by all means, if some of the littler grandkids want you to go on something, and if you can, go ahead and do that. Our granddaughter Emma really wanted us to go on jumping jellyfish. And to be really honest, I was a lot happier to go on jumping jellyfish than on Guardians of the Galaxy, which also used to be called Tower of Terror.
Neither of us went on that one.
Neither of us went on that one. So, yeah. So, ride the rides that you like or that the little kids want you to ride. Now, the kids wanted us to go on Incredicoaster. I went on it. But
I didn't, because I don't really like roller coasters.
That's just not his thing, but I was okay with it. We did ride Rise of the Resistance and Galaxy's Edge and a lot of other rides like that. Yeah. And honestly, one of the hardest things about those rides isn't the walking, but it's the continuously loading ride that you never actually can stop and stand. You continuously walk very slowly. Because a lot of these rides are continuous loading, which is great, the line keeps moving, but the line keeps moving. And so if you have to be in a line for 90 minutes, it can sometimes be really tiring because you can't really sit down. There's no place to stop because the line doesn't stop. It just keeps moving. It just is really kind of brutal to stand and walk and stand and walk and stand and walk for an hour and a half. And that's what we were doing. So tip number 2 is ride the rides you want to ride, but also make sure that you're wearing really good standing and walking shoes. At Disney, make sure you go for comfort, not style. Number 3, stick to your nutrition plan as much as you can. Now, we were pretty concerned about this. We've been working on a low-carb eating plan for a little while, which we'll talk more about in an upcoming video. But we were kind of concerned about it. There's a lot of treats and a lot of food out there.
Yeah, and the food is not inexpensive at Disney. And I don't think there's anything under $6, and a lot of it's a lot more than that.
Exactly. Now, a lot of us may have type 2 diabetes. There are people with food allergies, people with gluten intolerance and dairy sensitivity. So what are you going to do? Well, it turns out that Disney has really heard some of this, and there are a lot of really healthy choices. We were able to stick to it pretty well. Yeah. We only went off when we chose to. And that was for like the pretzel with the cheese. Yeah, that was pretty good. But you really can stick to nutrition. Now, here's what we did. We would have breakfast in the RV, and Kara and her family would have breakfast in their hotel. Then we packed a lunch
and we put it in a cooler, and they have lockers there at Disney right near the entrance. So you can just put your cooler and maybe some extra water or whatever in the locker. We also had a Ziploc bag of shelled pistachios so that we could munch on those along the way, and we avoided the I'm so hungry, I'll eat anything right now.
The doorknobs right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were able to help mitigate that as well as keep the cost down by doing those two things. The lockers are right at the beginning, right at the entrance to almost all the parks. They're run $7 to $10 a day for a locker, and you can have access going in and out of them as much as you need to. Save money and make sure you stick to nutrition goals.
Yes, and for dinner, what we would do is we use the mobile app to make orders online, and then we go pick it up or go into the dining area and have dinner there.
Exactly.
And that way we save time by knowing exactly when we were going to be able to eat and plan around that.
Right. You can stick to your nutrition goals and by just doing some extra planning ahead of time and making sure that you have contingency plans for snacks inside the park.
Yep. Tip number 4, people don't have to be happy all the time. Now, we know that Disney is billed as the happiest place on earth, and it can be a lot of fun, but it's also busy and crowded and expensive, and at times it can be frustrating. So it's likely that somebody's going to have a meltdown at some point.
Now, the meltdown can come in many different forms. It could be a migraine, it could be tears, it could be raging, it could be sulking, it could be any number of things. But rather than looking at the negative behavior and reacting to that, take a look at what's causing the behavior. Look behind it. Diagnose what that is. Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Are they tired? Do they have some kind of pain? Did they miss something? Are they upset about that? Find out what's causing that and address that. Now, the ways that you can address it would be by having some healthy snacks with you. Do you have maybe some cheese and crackers or nuts,
fruit.
veggie sticks, things like that? Water, really, really important, especially if you go to Disney in the hot summer months. It's very, very hot, and it's really important. Diagnose the problem, address that, and then that's going to make things a whole lot better.
And also, be sure to bring like your Tylenol or ibuprofen, whatever works for you. And you might want to have kids' doses of those as well.
You don't have to have very much, just a little bit stashed in your bag somewhere. And that way you've got that available if they have a problem.
Yep.
So the other thing that you might consider is if somebody's too afraid to go on a ride. If you've got younger kids, they may get right up to it. We had that exact thing happen. One of our young grandsons got right up to the entrance or to the seating at Indiana Jones and just said, can't do it.
Yep.
It was dark and it was kind of a scary ride. And so Grandma said, you know what? I'm good if I don't go on that ride. So I took him and we got out of the ride and we had kind of adventure of our own, but it was fine. We had a good time, and then we joined everybody at the beginning of the ride. And I think he went on that ride later in the week. Yeah. So, be prepared to miss a ride if a little one just needs to not go on it. Right. So, number 4, be prepared for meltdowns because they're going to happen. Number 5, plan your walking and parking strategy before you go.
On our longest day, I ended up walking 10.5 miles.
And I did about 7.5 miles. And our kids did even more than that.
Way more.
Exactly. So if walking that many miles isn't something that you're prepared or able to do, here's some alternatives.
First, look at your parking strategy. We tried parking at the Disney parking structure. It's about 3/4 of a mile walk from Disney parking to the park entrance. It's $30 a day. And when we were there, the trams were not running. So what we ended up doing is our kids' hotel was just a little bit further than the parking structure, and they got us a pass so we could park there free. So I would drop Peggy off at the Harbor Boulevard drop-off point, and it was just a short walk into the park entrance from there. And then I would take the car and park at the hotel and walk the mile from the hotel to the entrance. And that really helped out a lot.
Right. I would go into the park, find the kids, and then I would text or call Derek and say, hey, we're at Soaring Around the World, or we're at Jumpin' Jellyfish, or wherever it was we were. And he would find it and come on in. And we use GPS sometimes and texting and things like that. We call them stalker apps. We did. We can stalk each other.
Find each other, yeah.
Exactly. So that worked really well. Another parking strategy is not to use your own car at all. take a listen to what Wayne and Lou Van Leuven did. Now, they are our daughter-in-law's parents, and so we share some grandchildren.
Yeah.
And they recently went to Disney with one of our grandsons, and take a listen to what they did, because it's pretty brilliant.
Yes.
So Wayne,
Yeah.
you had some plans for a rental car. Is that correct? You
Yes,
flew to
yes.
Long Beach.
Yes.
Okay.
We had a rental car lined up, and it was a moderate-sized one, not a tiny one, because we're old and Michael's a pretty big guy. So we had one that was a little bit larger, but it was going to cost us $800 to rent for a week, plus gasoline. It was $4.50 per gallon,
Right.
is what we saw. Now, what we decided to do, we had some friends down the street that had been to San Francisco, and they used Uber. They had never used it before, and they found it pretty easy.
Lou, did you have any reservations about it?
Oh yeah, I was really nervous because I was nervous about strangers and whether or not they'd really pick us up, or if we'd be left stranded somewhere, or if we'd have to wait a long time for a ride or whatever. So I was really nervous about letting it go, but we decided to go ahead and try it, and
So you canceled the car?
the reservation.
Canceled the car. And we were staying at a World Mark place about a mile from Disneyland.
Okay.
So when we first got to Long Beach Airport, we got on the app and we got Uber to come. They were there immediately. You can actually track where the driver is, and they give his name and number if you needed to call him or give any special instructions. So they picked us up at Long Beach. They took us right to the World Mark, dropped us off, and we were actually surprised at how inexpensive it was for three of us from Long Beach Airport to the World Mark right up near Disneyland was about $20. So total, now we went back and forth every day to Disneyland. We went other places. We went from World Mark at Disneyland clear to Universal and back using Uber. And total amount we spent for the week was $450, or
Wow.
about half of what it was going to cost to rent a car.
Now, mind you, Uber gets more expensive depending
Good
on
point.
the time and day and at night. So, like, nighttime I think was a little more expensive than the afternoon, but the afternoon was more expensive than
Yeah.
the morning.
And you can rent cars that are a little bit larger. If you need one that's a little larger, it costs a little more money. You can also get prioritized if it's a really busy time for more money so that you get a ride quicker. All of those are spelled out on the app. You reduce the hassle of your trip because somebody else is doing the driving. You don't have to pay parking.
Even at your hotel.
There are a lot of benefits. And you can use Uber Eats and have food delivered.
So what's not to like, right?
Life is good.
There you go. So it's also okay if you need to use a mobility aid like a wheelchair, or as Disney calls them, an ECV, which is an electronic or electric conveyance vehicle. I call them motorized scooters.
Yeah.
You can rent both of those things at Disney. And if I were you, I would do that before you go so that you be sure to have it. It's expensive, but it might be worth it if it allows you to stay in the park and enjoy that time with your family.
Yep.
So wheelchairs, ECVs can be rented at Disney. Now, here's something else, though, that Wayne and Lou did. Take a listen to how they used the Disability Access Pass and under what circumstances they used it and how you can too.
We decided to look into this because Wayne has a history of polio, and when
And I'm
he's
75.
and when he walks a lot, his ankle really swells up. Michael just had surgery, had a letter from his doctor saying that he was not to be on his feet for an extended amount of time. So we went, first of all, I went to the town hall place, and there was a huge long line, and this one Disney worker came up to me and said, you can't go to the kiosks over here. So we went to the kiosk and got this DOS pass, and it's a disability access permit. And so what it allows you to do is when you get the Disney app on your phone, they'll put it on there so you hit that thing when you see it on your phone, and you can go ahead and schedule a ride for yourself and anybody else in your whole party. And so you can hit the ride, you figure out the time you're going to go. When the time comes, you go to the ride, they scan your phone, and as soon as that phone is scanned, you can pick another ride to get ready to go for your next one. And then you're on your ride, you're having a great time, you get off, you say, you know what, we got a half an hour, let's start hoofing it down to wherever. And so the next thing you know, you're going on one ride after another, because you don't have to wait in line.
With this app, you need you might have gaps on the rides you want to go on, up to like an hour to 2 hours. So make sure you find other rides real fast. Easier
Were you
rides.
able to do that?
We were able to do that. We probably hit all our favorite rides in one day. It was that
Yeah.
good.
So when you've got some legit disability issues, there are
Yeah.
ways to kind of move around that.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Physical discipline.
Yeah.
Perfect. Great. Thank you very much. So tip number 5.
Plan your walking, parking, and mobility strategy before you go.
And you'll have a much better time.
Yep. Number 6, you can walk your own pace. You don't have to keep up with the kids. You might not be able to, and in fact, we couldn't.
How things work for us is the kids would go on ahead and we would get there when we could, like to get in line for Rise of Resistance or something like that. And they would be in line. There might be 25 people after them by the time we got there. So we would just go, excuse me, our grandkids are over there. And we would say, excuse me, pardon me, excuse me, pardon me. And people were great to let us in. Nobody, it's like, what are you doing cutting the line? We're not cutting the line. We're going to meet our family up there because we're slow and we're old. And sometimes I even said that and they would laugh and, you know, and they let us in. So the kids would go get in line and then we would join them, get on the ride, and everything was fine.
Yeah.
So
It worked out well.
go your own pace because you probably can't keep up with the kids.
So tip number 7. Our granddaughter thought this tip should be, grandparents should not forget their credit card. We didn't, but we didn't melt it either. But the real number 7 is have fun.
This may be the only time you do this with your grandkids. And if that's the case, make sure you enjoy that time. You know, they're kids and things are going to happen, but Grandma and Grandpa can be there to help mitigate any issues and just have a really good time with
Yeah,
them.
you can help make memories
Absolutely.
that they'll treasure for a long time.
That's the most important thing. Have fun, make memories, enjoy yourselves, and pace yourself too.
Yeah.
All right, friends, that's going to do it for us this time. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and ring the bell to get notified when we drop a new one.
You bet. And until next time, restless friends, you take care.
Cheers.